Let's rewind like a VHS. Turn back the time, feel the beat in our chest. Make sure that we never forget. Let's rewind like a VHS. 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 Let's rewind like a VHS. 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 Let's rewind like a VHS. Let's concede that we wanna believe that the past was only a dream, just a place that we never could leave. Follow us on the way to retrieve. VHS, VHS. Let's rewind like a VHS. VHS, VHS. Let's rewind like a VHS. Like a VHS, turn back the time, feel the beat in our chest. Make sure that we never forget. Let's rewind like a VHS. VHS, VHS. Let's rewind like a VHS. VHS, VHS. Let's rewind like a VHS. Let's concede that we wanna believe that the past was only a dream, just a place that we never could leave. Follow us on the way to retrieve. VHS, VHS. Let's rewind like a VHS. VHS, VHS. Let's rewind like a VHS.
What's up, everyone? DJ Nubis here with you on the Metal Time Radio podcast. Here with my great co-host, good friend Kevin Lambert from the Entertainment Headquarters, as well as special guest Anthony Jordan from Anthony Jordan Movies and Gaming. Thank you, gentlemen, for being here as we go, and we're going to review 1997's Mimic. Directed by Guillermo del Toro. I can never pronounce his first name. My fault, G.
Guillermo del Toro.
There you go. Thank you. Stars Mira Sorvino, Jeremy Northam, Josh Brolin, and Charles S. Dutton, which I always love him and a lot of stuff back then. So, it is a 1997 American science fiction horror film, which deals with its plot follows the creation of a genetically modified insect designed to battle an infected cockroach infestation that rapidly evolves and begins attacking humans. So, as we always do, let's go around the room and ask, like, when was the first time you saw this film and what did you think on your first impression? So let's start with our guest, Anthony Jordan.
Well, it came out in 97. I'm trying to think. Maybe 98, but this was back during the days when pay-per-view was big. And I had asked permission to order I Know What You Did Last Summer. Next movie playing after it was Mimic. I didn't even ask permission. I just ordered, and that one was actually the all-day ticket. I didn't get in trouble. Both came out of my
I was going to say, you broke the rules. Snap.
Yeah, I paid for it, so all was fair. Came out of my allowance, but Mimic had the all-day ticket, and out of the two films, I still think more fondly about this one to this day.
Yeah.
Kevin.
Oh, I cannot actually remember the first time I seen it. I just remember when I did finally see it. I think it was on one of the channels, the movie channels or something. I fell in love with it straight away. Like, I know it's not one of Guillermo del Toro's most talked about movies or popular movies, but it's definitely one of his earlier works where you definitely seen even back then how creative he was as a director, and how you could definitely see the inspirations in this movie from the likes of The Fly, and even in some parts things like Alien, especially down in the sewer system and the scenes. So definitely was a fun surprise, and I still enjoy it to this day.
Yeah, it's funny because 97 was like a really big year for me in terms of going to the theaters when that was really kind of a thing. These days, theaters are kind of empty, but back in the 90s, man, movie theaters, movie going was a big, big deal, especially for me when I was a young, spry 27-year-old. So I remember seeing this in the theaters and enjoying it, but I kind of forgot about it over some time. But then when we were going to prepare to do the review here, because this is Kevin's pick, where he and I alternate selections every time we do this show, he chose this one. So when I went back and rewatched it, I think I did catch the director's cut. It is way creepier than I remembered. Like, this film is creepy as fuck. And so it sticks with you a little bit more the second time around. Maybe it's just because
Similar thing
some of
with
these
me.
spider movies and stuff. So
Yeah. So that's kind of what happened with me. Like I haven't seen this for a good few years, and I remember I had seen it maybe once or twice, and then kind of forgot about it, like yourself. And then all of a sudden, when I can't remember when I suggested, well, we're doing a stream, and then we were talking about something, and then somebody brought it up, and I went straight away because it was like a flash, like a light going off, thinking, oh, that's definitely something I want to revisit. That's definitely a film I remember fondly. And so I'm glad that I had the opportunity to do that, and that we're doing it now.
This was, like Anubis alluded, this was kind of a stacked year. This same year also gave us The Relic and Event Horizon.
Yep. Most definitely. So yeah, basically Mirror plays a doctor or a scientist who ends up helping out because they have an issue with the cockroaches, normal cockroaches that are carrying a disease that affects the children, and the children are dying off, and it's just there's no real remedy for it or any kind of like thing that will help cure it. So she comes up with a plan to bring in this insect that's modified that will destroy the cockroaches and basically kill the disease.
Yeah, it's a disease called Strickler's, which I don't know like I've never heard of that. I don't know if that is an actual real illness.
Just somebody for the movie.
Yeah.
So, it's something obviously that's like created to like that spread through like, probably feces from like bugs and cockroaches and creepy stuff.
Yeah. So they get this genetically modified creature and they put it down there, and this, because they're desperate, humanity's like really begging for a miracle to happen because the kids, it's like there's this tough scene where she's walking through the hospital and these kids are like breathing fast and heavy and they're just passing away, and it's killing the parents.
It's stated even the ones that survive are going to be on respirators for the rest of their lives.
Yeah. So they release it, and it does help the problem. The disease retracts, and the kids are surviving more and more. And of course, her character is, I believe, married to this gentleman who's another scientist or doctor, and they were hopes to have a kid someday as well. Like, they're kind of hoping to have a kid, but during the current times when the disease was prevalent, they probably didn't want to try for one because the risk was way too high. So they go and they create this, and it does help for a while, and then she gets recognized for her work of being the one that helped knock, at least contain this disease in some way and keep it down. But then we kind of get they call it the Judas breed. In fact,
Yeah.
that's a cool name.
Yeah.
It's a hybrid between a mantis and a termite, and it releases
Yeah.
an enzyme which accelerates the roach's metabolism.
Yeah.
And it should be, no, the name came from, like, in the earlier drafts of the script, there was supposed to be more religious commentation here. Like, Del Toro's idea is that man is no longer God's favorite creation, and now these creatures are. And that's something that didn't survive subsequent drafts, but things like the names are elements of that original draft.
Yeah.
And the whole idea of engineering these roaches is that it's all to do with them, the metabolism. So the way the roaches burn calories faster than they can nourish themselves, thus they starve to death. The roaches carrying the disease are eradicated, and Peter and Susan later marry. So the work colleagues then, and then obviously when she engineers the Judas breed, obviously the rest of the story set like a few years later, like 3 years later after this event. So, you know what happens when you start messing with nature and genetically engineer shit.
Right. So yeah, 3 years later, we're sent to a different scene where this priest is running away from assailant and eventually is caught, but we can't really see because it's dark, but it looks like a man in a cloak that's basically chasing him down and killing him. So this, I think he's an autistic boy.
He's supposed to be.
Yeah, so he's looking from a window and it's raining and stuff like that. So he mimics
Mr.
his own,
Funny Shoes.
yeah, so he mimics the sounds that he hears, like this clacking. Yeah. So he takes like a couple of spoons or whatever, and he starts clacking them together to mimic the sound that he's hearing outside. But all he really sees is, of course, is hooded, or not a hooded, but a man in a trench coat with funny shoes, as Kevin pointed to. So, Kevin, how did you feel about the setup to all this on the film?
Well, really good. Like you said, the film is a lot creepier the second or many years later after you first watch it. And the whole idea of this abandoned church and the pouring rain and this older priest, because I think he had a crucifix around his neck. He's clearly frightened. He's clearly discovered something that, he wish he hadn't. And he suddenly come across this entity that if you watch this film a few minutes in without seeing the first few minutes scenes in the net, and you just were flicking through the channel and you came across these particular scenes of the priest on the top of a roof in the middle of the rain and something chasing him, the first thing you think of when you watch them particular scenes right at the beginning is like, oh, this has got to be like a film about demons or something, or a film about somebody being possessed by something. So there's definitely, like Anthony said, like this religious kind of connotation within a handful of the scenes of this plot, especially like when you don't know what the hell it is. And the whole background and the setup of it being in an abandoned, derelict church.
Yeah. Anthony.
It was just a great setup. You had the background. You have this sickness that's so far. The good news is it's contained to New York, but the bad news is it's roaches that are spreading it. So it's something that right off the bat, how do you deal with this? A great setup, the reveal, and I love the scene after they see the roaches are wiped out and she's actually has those concerns about what have we really unleashed. Like, even if she's not forward confronting the worst case scenario, in the back of her mind, you can tell she's thinking, what if these things survive and become something worse? And then we go to the scene at the church, which, like Kevin said, if you miss the opening, you would think this is some kind of demon. So it's a great setup.
Yeah, I found it interesting that when you talked about how she was feeling about them releasing the hybrid, it reminds me a lot of Jurassic Park and how they thought when they were creating the dinosaurs that they couldn't breed. And then, Jeff Goldblum's character is like, well, nature finds a way. So it has a very similarity to that and how it's presented with these insects are adapting. And we start to learn how much they're adapting by what happens the following the way the movie keeps going. So yeah, I'll let Kevin go ahead and talk about a little bit more what's going on from this point on. So after the boy sees the events, explain to what's going on from there.
So obviously, after the events that transpire in the church, there's a crime scene with the body, and something's going on, and you then meet her and him are now happily married. They're like building a life together. They're trying for a baby, and after this happens, you get the scene with the two kids. So 3 years later, it's New York City. You've got the New York City underground. The priest has been killed. You then get two kids that are basically surveilling, surveilling the subways and that, looking for stuff, and they kind of come across like bugs and that, and they know that they know Susan, with her being like a doctor. They know that she might, buy some bugs off them for a certain price, and they're like these two little young wheeler dealers.
Yeah.
They'll do anything to make a quick buck, and so they're looking for the roaches and stuff like that in the subway, and then the kid after the murder, like the autistic kid, he refers to him as Mr. Funny Shoe, and you get that scene where he's the pair, like his father, who I think I don't know if they were they Jewish.
It looked like it, yeah. It kind of looked like they were.
Like they're like walking past the crime scene where obviously this priest has been found. And then they basically go up the stairs and enter the apartment building, and the dad's trying to like ignore what's going on. He's trying to, be respectful, keep out of the way. And the next thing you're in the subway and you discover that the dad's he's a shoe shiner.
Mm-hmm.
It's like shining the shoes and all that. And they kind of start like investigating things that are going on down in the sewers. But why that takes place next is because when Susan gets the kids and, they bring out the boxes with all the bugs in, they call it the weird bug. They find this bug that is just completely weird. And she recognizes it, and she kind of has fear in her eyes, thinking, is this what I think it is? Is this could it be an evolved bug? Is it one of the Judas bugs? At the same time that's going on, you keep seeing out of the window like a man standing surveilling her apartment, and he's just standing there, what appears to look like a trench coat. And the creepy thing is, as she's now on her own, as our friend, and the kids are now away, she's doing research, and you can hear like the noises and the creepiness, in the window suddenly opens, and the little bug that she was looking at, well, it's not really a little dog, it's like fucking this big cockroach thing
that she grabbed for whatever reason.
Yeah, she grabbed, and it's now stung her, and it's sticking to her, and it's all this crap going on, and she loses the bug. The next thing I know, you think she's gonna get killed. Basically, they're kind of like I thought we were gonna do something like a Scream, where when I first seen this, where like how you had Drew Barrymore at the beginning of Scream, she's on the movie
Yeah.
poster, and she's the main cast member who you think she was, and then she gets wiped out. I thought, they're actually going to do that with this, but they didn't. She survives, and she basically she looks out the window and there's nothing there. But there was that particular scene where she's looking on the floor, looking for this bug that's fell off the table. That she's very concerned about, and you can hear the cricket noise, like the cricketing and the tweaking and the twerping, and you can see like through the shine of the window that there's something on the ceiling above her head.
Mm-hmm.
And you can just see like the outline of some sort of shape, like a shadow. And the next thing you know, it's obviously one of these giant bugs that hops down and then hops out the window, which is really fucked up. I'm just surprised that it didn't just kill her and took the other bug.
Yeah, it's kind of like the creatures were protecting their identity, even though as we get towards the end of the movie, like it's clear that they have a plan to kind of like build an army almost, and then eventually unleash themselves on the world, which is certainly her concern because they are able to mimic humans in the way they walk, and they actually create like a facial structure that looks almost humanoid. So it's very creepy in how they're able to adapt.
If she had gotten killed, though, like we definitely wouldn't have gotten a very different movie because she wouldn't have been on set as much, and like behind the scenes, she was doing a lot of fighting for Del Toro because apparently there was a push to have him removed.
Yeah, which is interesting only on this aspect because from what I understand, Weinstein, both Harvey and his brother, they felt like the movie should be scarier than it was, which the director's cut that I saw was quite scary enough. So like, I didn't see anything in it that would implicate that Del Toro was lost in how he was trying to translate the film or whatever. But yeah, that's very interesting because it's an event that Del Toro really hates. Like he hates talking about the movie because his experience with the Weinsteins was so horrible.
There's an introduction on this, and he even talks about in the commentary. He's going to talk about something to the extent of what he legally can talk about. Yeah. So there's stuff going on behind the scenes that we'll never get the full story.
Yeah, it sounds like another production from hell scenario where the director had a vision, had a dream, the Weinsteins decided to produce it, but because it's not in basically their secret direction, it just becomes a production from hell. And it sounds like another case of a director who wants off it, like Neil Marshall, who did Hellboy 2019. He just couldn't wait till I get that film over with. So
now, while he does have a bitterness for the theatrical cut, he does admit to actually loving the director's cut.
Yeah, because it sticks closer to his vision and everything. But yeah, Shavina, who's had her own issues with Harvey, she's obviously one that supposedly, allegedly was assaulted or at least proposed by Weinstein during his rapey days. So she stuck up for Del Toro, and she actually threatened to quit the film if he didn't give Del Toro the reins to do his film. So
sharing it with Anubis behind the scenes, but there's a interesting story about her and Weinstein. In like, she never told her father Paul because she was afraid of what he would do, and he would go to jail for it. And when the Weinstein stuff came out and it came to the surface, Paul was like, "How come you never told me? I don't understand." And she told him, "Well, it's because I knew if you found out you'd kill him." And Paul had apparently said, "I wouldn't have killed him, but he never would have walked again."
Well, I remember even when it finally did come out, there was a quote by Paul, like, and I think the same thing by Dario Argento. Like, both of them were like, if I ever had seen Harvey Weinstein, I would beat his ass into the pavement. Like, both of them were very angry.
I don't blame him. Like, he's just thinking about him giving his goosebumps. freak.
Now, I did find this pretty cool. There was a couple of screenwriters that were uncredited on the film, and one was Matt Greenberg, who ended up writing for Reign of Fire, which we'll be doing on your
Ooh.
retro movie show coming up soon.
Mhm.
The other one was John Sayles, who was credited for writing on the Howling as well as Piranha from 1976. So I thought that was kind of cool that those two guys were involved with this film as well.
Mm.
So yeah, so basically, what is her name in this? Susan Tyler and Peter Mann. They're both investigating what's going on in the sewers. You mentioned the two kids that are basically collectors. Are going through the sewage area underneath the city and the subway, and they're just finding random things. They found bugs, and of course, you mentioned the bugs that were terrorizing Tyler in her apartment. But we also get introduced to MTA officer Leonard Norton, played by Charles Dutton, who's great in this film as well. As well as Josh Brolin, who plays John Maslow.
Who looks
Maslow,
really young in
go
this?
ahead.
Who looks really young in this?
Yeah. If people don't know, that's basically who become to play Thanos in later films.
Yes.
So, and I forgot how he ends up in this film too, which is kind of funny. It's like, oh, dude, what a way to go!
Yeah, like his what happens to him was the best death in the film for me.
But yeah, like we find that these people are like, I like the one moment where she does find the big insect that's found, and it's like, dude, it's not quite as big what we're going to see, but it's almost like this size. And if I had seen that as a normal human being, I don't care where it came from, I'm like, dude, I am getting off this planet now.
Definitely. Like just the shape of it, the look of it, how it basically it turned its wings into like a trench coat, and like the top of the wings, the shape can curve and look like a human face. Just very creative, which is what Del Toro is known for.
Yep. So they end up like going down there and trying to discover what is going on, because there's something amiss with the Judas breed that's, they're evolving and changing. And eventually they do find out that there's some that are life size, and they are, like you said, they're mimicking their human prey. Basically they're feeding on us. Like they said, okay, we're getting bigger, we need bigger food, so we become the next in line. The funny thing is, when I first saw this film, I could have swore there was a moment, maybe it's in the second one or something, I never saw the third one, but I thought for a moment from my memory that she had some sort of understanding with one, but I guess not, because this film, nothing in this film that I saw the other night showed any kind of.
It kind of almost sort of happens in the second one.
Okay. So I know I saw it somewhere, and I'm like, well, because when I saw this, I was like, dude, this is so brutal. This is crazy.
One thing that I think could have been done like a little, because they're feeding on humans now, that could have been a little differently done in this movie to make it a little richer, that in some of the background shots, either newsstands or on the subway tunnels or whatnot, you see wanted posters of various people that have gone missing. Like just subtly indicate throughout the movie that a lot of people are missing.
Yeah. Do you want to say something, Kevin?
No, I agree. Like the only thing I want to say is I've never seen any of the sequels. Like the only thing that if I were to watch the second one would be just to see what happens with Lance Henriksen, because I know he's in the second one, and I know the third one, which is called Mimic 3, The Sentinel. I've heard that is absolutely garbage.
It's actually Del Toro's favorite of the sequels because it's closer to the short story that this movie was based on.
Yeah, I think I saw the second one, but it's probably just like it wasn't as good as the first, so I kind of just forgot all about it. I never watched the third one. Usually sequels don't live up to anything, for the most part.
Yeah.
Lance is in the third one too, apparently.
Oh.
This also had, if you guys didn't notice, the guy that played Jeremy was Norman Reedus, who was in The Walking Dead. Davey is in this.
Oh, cool. I
So,
didn't
yeah,
realize.
one thing that happens is one of the creatures kidnaps the young boy that saw him kill the priest and everything. So, and I don't know if it ever explained how he was still alive, but
Del Toro explains it in the commentary. He said it was a combination of the kid being able to mimic the sound they make, and because he wasn't afraid, he wasn't producing the smell of fear that would come through the adrenaline, so it didn't click with them that he was food.
Yeah,
Okay,
and
that makes
it's like
sense.
if you remember, if you're a bit nervous or under like stress or pressure, you sweat. And
Yeah.
she actually says don't sweat because they can pick it up.
Yeah.
And he had no fear. He didn't show like he was under any sort of stress or harm. He basically went out there because he heard that he was mimicking the sound of the giant, cockroaches. And he suddenly, obviously, just when the fame Mr. Funny Shoes didn't realize how bad the situation was.
Yeah. So yeah, they basically are now, trying to find the boy, and they're down there with the Officer Leonard Norton as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I think even the father makes his way down there and to try to, find the kid because he went missing and everything. So they end up discovering that they're being chased around by these things, both big and small, or, some are a bit more smaller than the big ones. But they also discover when they get inside the little subway car that they managed to cut one in half. Disgusting as hell.
Yeah.
Good Del Toro effects there. But they discover also, like, not only not sweating, but if you put the smell of the creature on you through their blood, it also keeps the creatures at bay. Like, they just kind of like think you're just another one of them or something. So they, like insects, they'll just react to how because they're probably not totally on sight. So like it's because it's dark, they have to rely on sense and stuff like that. So
here's an interesting trivia with that scene, how she noticed they like evolved to have lungs.
Mm-hmm.
I forget what Del Toro said he was watching, but there was a trivia question as to which monster movie depicted the most realistic reason bugs would grow giant. And the answer was apparently Mimic, and for them to grow to that size, they would actually have to evolve lungs.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, so some scientific truth in it.
Yeah.
Well, go ahead, Anthony. Just describe us what's going on with the subway car and like what happens after they, discover all the bug juice and how it works and stuff like that.
I also throw in at this point, depending which cut you watch, you may or may not have been given the information that she's pregnant at this point. Because that was left out of the theatrical cut.
Like there's a scene obviously when she goes down to the sewers after the kids, because we've skipped over a bit where basically what had happened is after the discovery of the smaller bug that goes missing in our apartment or in our lab, you get to the sewage systems. And you go to the sewage system, you've got guys that are clearing it out, and they think it's a child, but it ends up being a giant, like, I guess, an infant bug, but it's ginormous. And like she's basically, sitting in an apartment with her husband, and she takes a pregnancy test. Yeah. And what ends up happening is it comes up like it's a fail, basically. So she leaves the apartment early, but the husband's still in the bathroom, and he just happens to glance in the bin. When he picks it out of the bin, it's actually turned red, which is a sign that she's pregnant. And obviously, he then goes to investigate the sewer system when she's there. and they kind of have split up, and then obviously all the chaos consumes, and so it does. I was expecting the fact she's pregnant and might have shielded her from the bugs. I didn't know, because like how women's bodies can change with hormones and all of that kind of things when your body's going through like menopause or something. I was assuming like one of the reasons the bugs wouldn't attack her is because the chemicals in her body are starting to switch with her being pregnant.
Well, funny you should mention that. Again, Del Toro mentioned in the commentary that, like, the reason she wasn't initially killed when she was taken was because the bug could sense 2 heartbeats.
Wow.
So is it basically making the stake that despite their predatory instincts that they respected motherhood? I mean, I don't know.
It's probably more a biological thing that they probably have 2 hearts. So when it heard the 2 heartbeats, it could have confused her with one of them that has 2 hearts.
Yeah.
Yeah. If she's got 2 lungs, then she's probably got 2 hearts. They've probably got 2 hearts as well.
They're in the car. It's a scene after they rescue her in the same opening. She comes through, the Judas bug comes through, and they shut the doors, locking its abdomen in, and it rips itself in half, and Charles Dutton gets his leg cut open before they kill it. And naturally, being the scientist, she gets inquisitive, starts talking about what happened and figure out what it is. And a bunch of the other bugs start attacking the train car, and like these things are denting it, and you could tell it's only a matter of seconds before they rip through and everything's slaughtered. And she reaches in and pulls out these 2 glands, and she like, start rubbing this on yourself, rubbing it on every crack in the window, every door, and she even squeezes some of this fluid on Charles Dutton's gashed open wound, which had to hurt because it's his blood that has them so ravenous.
Yeah.
And as they do it,
yeah,
the bugs just back off and calm down because the pheromones tricks them into thinking that they're them, which is, it's a nice callback because the whole point is explained in the scene. Sometimes a species will evolve to mimic its predator. In this case, here's humans having to do the best they can to actually mimic these things to survive. So I like when the name has multiple meanings within the context of the story.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, it's almost like a lot like Predator too. Like Schwarzenegger has to put mud on to not be seen by the infrared of the predator. In order, he discovers it by mistake, and she kind of discovers it by just her thinking process of a scientist. So, kind of works in a similar manner to avoid to be detected by the creature. So yeah, they're in the car and they get a plan that they're going to try to switch on the main power to the track so they can kind of get out of there because they're down in this deep subway. And Kevin mentioned earlier that we didn't touch on was the 2 kids that were finding all these knickknacks to sell and these bug pieces and stuff. One of the things that Tyler told them to look for if they found one was like this cocoon type thing. Mm-hmm. And that's basically what these bugs were putting their young in, and that's how they would hatch out and stuff. So when they discover one, the bug obviously gets very protective and to protect their young. So it kills the 2 kids, which we don't see, but we know it happens. Like it's just they become food. But yeah, they get the car running, and as they're splitting up to do different tasks, there comes a point where the Judas bug is trying to get to Tyler and the young boy. And at this stage, Norton, who has his leg cut, played by Dutton, knows that the bugs are attracted to the blood. So he just goes ahead and becomes a distraction so that they can get away and do their thing.
is another nice callback to an earlier scene when she's showing the kids the termite mound, and she's like, "These are the warriors. They'll fight to the death and not even think about it." Which is just the animal kingdom. You play your role. That's it. Where you have Charles Dutton who makes the choice. Well, we're all not going to make it out of here, and I'm not going to make it far. So if I'm going to go out, my death is going to stand for something. And I love the way he plays that scene because you can tell he's playing it like someone who's lightheaded from blood loss.
Yeah.
And he starts singing because obviously he sings when he's nervous, and he also, I think, sings because it brings him a bit of peace.
And that was Charles Dutton's idea, was the singing for his character.
That's cool. He's such a good actor.
Yeah. And the death he had in this, it's similar to the death that he had in Alien 3.
Yeah.
You know, like when the dog aliens all over and like scratching the hell out of his face and he's pinned to the floor. It's virtually the same death, except he's being pinned to the floor and mauled to death by these killer bugs.
I also do like the one scene when the guy, he's getting the train going again, and I loved his clever solution to needing a new fuse, and it was to use his glasses to conduct the electricity.
Yeah.
Which I want to say was Del Toro putting a big FU in the film to the Weinsteins, because he actually had the fight to have a character with glasses on in the movie. So it was probably like, see, they needed these glasses to survive in the end.
Right.
Yeah, that's clever, that.
Yeah. So once Norton does that and becomes a diversion and, gets taken by the critters, Peter is basically working on that switch, but he ends up going also and finding a dumbwaiter, which he's going to end up blowing because he's found like this huge nest of these creatures. And I don't even know where he was. It was still in the subway somewhere, but it looked almost sci-fi. Did they ever mention where he was with that? Because like it looked like a big old industrial area of pipes and stuff, so it was kind of weird.
Probably some.
I think it was like the main
relay.
Yeah, like the main gas distillery within the confines of the railway, hidden behind the wall. That's probably well. You see when there's like that explosion, it's it goes on for miles and miles and miles. Yeah. Similar to the area. I cannot remember. Was it one of the Superman movies where I think something similar happens, where he's in a similar area where they need to try and turn the gas off before there's a huge explosion that'll destroy Metropolis, like a part of the Metropolis, and you just see Superman fly down like the long like underground tunnel with all of the pipes. When he gets to the end, he manages to stop like a huge explosion. I think it's that kind of underground pipeline.
Yeah.
And obviously a lot of bugs like somewhere that's warm and damp.
Yeah.
So it's a perfect place for them to migrate and hibernate and to build a nest.
Yep. So he's gonna set fire to this and basically set them, blow them all up. And I can't remember. Is there only one male? Because I thought they alluded there's only like one male to the female.
Alluded there's only one male.
Yeah. Well, that picture that you showed of the bug standing on the tracks is the male. Yeah.
So he manages to blow up the rest of them, but the male is still out there, and that eventually tries to chase down Chu and Susan, but she lures it in front of the oncoming train, which then runs over it and kills it. And then, of course, we get the nice little reunite at the end between the three of them. Now, somehow, I don't know how Peter survived that explosion because it happened so fast that I don't think he had time to jump in the water. But they did allow him to jump into like this pool of water to avoid being singed alive. But
there was the original scene planned with the male. This never happened because the wine themes didn't think it was scary. but how they fold up into that more human-like silhouette, it would have folded up into like a perfect or near perfect looking silhouette of the man. Then it would have reached out in a perfectly formed hand and pointed at her and said, "Leave." But the Weinsteins didn't even let that get out of the writing process because they said, "That's not scary." And I'm like, what are they smoking? That's terrifying.
Yeah.
That looks like some like out of Invasion of the Body Snatchers at the end when he stares and he points and screams. That would have scared me.
Because they're now as smart as us.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the reality is like, see, the Weinsteins are dumb anyway, but the reality is when you have a creature that is instrumental in the breeding process, if that male had been left alive, that's far more terrifying than killing it.
Yes, I agree.
All right. So overall, what are your final thoughts as well as your rating? So let's start with Anthony Jordan.
Well, final thoughts, I want to we do get the great ending where it leaves it ambiguous as to whether more of them are alive. On this, there's some deleted scenes, including an alternate ending, and I want to throw this out there where it doesn't leave it ambiguous. The kid is looking, and you hear that clacking sound, and then the camera pulls back, and you hear one more bug sound effect before it cuts to black. And I think what we got with the ambiguous ending was far superior and more unsettling. But final thoughts, absolute classic. I loved this film back then. I love it even more now, especially after seeing the director's cut in what Del Toro's original version of the film actually was. It's got great suspense cinematography. It uses both digital and practical effects to great effect, even if the CG does still show its age. But I'll probably give extremely high marks, like a 9.5, maybe even a 10. This is one of the classic sci-fi horror films of the 90s.
Mm-hmm.
Kevin?
Well, 1997 was a fantastic year. I had, obviously, you've mentioned it, we had Events Horizon, we had The Relic, we had Mimic, and it just seemed to be a good year for really strong horror and scientific horror. And, we also had Spawn, I think, came out in the same year. So it was a really strong year. Now, one thing I loved about this is, like, it was the early works of Guillermo del Toro. This basically give you a little hint of what's to come and what he was capable of as a director. And I love it. I really do. And back in the 90s, they weren't frightened to do things. Like, you had the scene with the two kids who were killed gruesomely by the bugs. Now, if they did a modern reboot, they probably would either completely cut that scene out, or they would just hint at a child death and not, go to that extreme where you actually were hearing the noises and seeing things going on. Like I say, great plot. It was like a mixture of them meet The Fly, meet Alien. The cast were great. The story's great. The effects, or the CGI effects are a little bit dated, but there were some practical effects that I still think holds up in this. The only other negative I would say, but I think it is because of how it's set, it is into, I know what Anthony you see where you can turn your settings and make it lighter on screen, but the film was filmed quite dark, and there is like some scenes that I think were a bit too dark. But overall, I'm going to give it 7 out of 10 for a rewatch. It was a great revisit.
Yeah, so I do think that, it's funny because like I said, I did see this in the theaters. I did remember liking it, but I think the second time around, I really enjoyed it a lot more. Like, I don't know if it's just because I'm kind of pissed off about modern sci-fi movies not really living up to the stuff that we saw back in the day. You mentioned about The Relic. That was going to be my initial follow-up to this, but I think I'll hold off on that because it's a little bit too much in the same vein in terms of crazy creature features. But I'm kind of right there with Anthony. I'm going to give it a 9 out of 10. I think it's still very decent. It's actually much better than I gave it credit for even back then. I think if I would have rated it back then, it might have been a 7 or 8. So I actually think the second time around, I've enjoyed it a lot more.
You know,
Yeah, I did as well.
you know, because of this movie, Del Toro had some changes to the Blade 2 script because the Reapers were supposed to be more shape-shifting enemies. And he was like, I'm going to direct it, but you have to make these changes because this is too similar to Mimic, and people are going to think I came up with these creatures.
Yeah.
Mm.
And it's funny because his vision with the creatures or whatever for Blade 2, we saw some of that later on in other monster movies. They do kind of similar things with the split.
Including the strain, which was something he came up with.
Right.
Yeah, the strains are great. Well, the first season and part of the second series great, but the third series was a bit of a letdown. The final season.
I've got through maybe 2 or 3 episodes of season 1. I just haven't been able to get back to it, but I enjoyed what I saw. It was pretty good.
Yeah.
It goes downhill like after like the Master original body. Like, you never had another body for the Master that had like the same threatening screen presence.
Yeah.
All right. Well, coming up, Anthony, anything on your channel that you're doing that people need to know about?
Gotta upload my Godzilla vs. Gigan review, then hop on Godzilla vs. Megalon.
Cool.
Very cool. Kevin?
Well, I've got my top 10 Clint Eastwood movies that are going to launch on the channel real soon. I have just seen a new trailer drop for a new sci-fi series that I'm going to check out. So I do have a 1 trailer reaction due, and then that's probably going to be me done now till next week, where, you know, I'll probably figure some sort of shit to put on the channel.
Yeah, I know how that goes. You try to fill in the blank when you can.
Yeah.
So for me, this week, basically, tomorrow, Tony and I will be doing another Ghouls of Midnight. This time he's picked Peter Pan's Neverland Nightmare.
He invited me on that one.
So we'll have Anthony there with that as well.
That'll be good. Well, yeah.
I haven't watched it yet, so I don't know how good it will be, but he's on this kick now. He did Popeye the other day, so.
Yeah, well, a lot of people think they're all interlinked, but I do know there's separate directors who are doing, because all the licenses for certain childhood characters or fairy tale licenses have come up for grabs. So all these horror directors are getting the same idea of getting the licenses and turning them into horror films. I do know Neverland Nightmares is part of the Sinister Childhood universe, which is Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey 1 and 2. Then this one's the next entry in that universe, which is Peter Pan Neverland Nightmare. I think the next one being released, it's either the Bambi Reckoning or it's Pinocchio Unstrung or something.
There's a kid in this one that you like. He has a Blood and Honey shirt on, so I'm guessing that's the extent of them being connected.
Yeah. But it's all going to lead to an eventual team up movie. They're doing the Pooniverse Assemble movie.
Pooniverse Assemble. Well, at least they're being creative. Friday, I will have my next vintage cult cinema where Mr. Tony the Dead and I will be doing Hackers from 1995. And then also later in the afternoon, I'm continuing my Kaiju Spotlight series with the professor as we do Varan. So we're going to be diving into that.
I'm shocked that he got Varan.
I was this close to just picking somebody else just to piss him off, but I was like, I can't do that to him.
You should have given him Evera.
No, I want to get him Godzilla Jr. Minya.
While you're at it, you could make it a double Cake and do Ebera's cousin.
Ugh.
It's gonna be
Again,
funny
that-
when I eventually. It's gonna be funny when I eventually get the Minya because I don't think anybody's gonna really want to do it.
Get Neko to do Minya.
I don't think she even likes Minya. I think she likes Godzilla Jr. like I do, but I don't think she likes Minya.
I know the perfect person, Lady Fatblood.
Oh, you want to piss her off? Okay. if I ask her, I'm going to say you sent me to ask her. That's what I'm going to do. Yeah,
Yes.
that's all I got for this week. Although my next cinematic synergy, like I said, I considered doing the Relic, but I think it's a little bit too close to what we just did in terms of the vibe. And that year was a great year for horror. But
When you do that, I want to be on that one.
oh yeah, no problem. He might even choose it himself. I don't know, but I think I'm going to shift gears a little bit. And I don't know if you guys have seen this film, but it's actually one of my favorites of two films that were very similar that year. From 2007, we're going to do The Illusionist with Edward Norton and Jessica Biel.
I've heard of it. I don't think I've seen it though.
Oh, that's amazing. And it came out the same year that Christian Bale and Hugh Jackman did The Prestige. It's kind of these like magician type films. So it's very cool, very good film. So yeah, I'll be doing The Illusionist, and I'll find a way to get you to see it and everything. Like I said, I got my Plex account. I don't know if Kevin got in there yet or not, but I got some films in there right now. Either way, I got some stuff to upload because earlier today, Tony and I did my Ghouls pick of Cuckoo from 2024. And then I did a reaction video to the new Predator anime, Killer of Killers. So we'll be getting that up as well. Thank you, gentlemen, for being here today and talking this movie with me. I appreciate it very much. Please like and subscribe to their channels. Both put out great content. And we are part of the Sci-Fi Collective, and we will see you next time on the Metal Time Radio podcast.